What's going on, Infected, and welcome to the Quarantine. Today we're going to be taking a look at a game by the name of Fallen Lands, a post-apocalyptic board game. Fallen Lands is a story-driven narrative, kind of city-building adventure in a post-apocalyptic United States, boiled down. So basically what's going to happen is each player is going to take control of a faction, and in that faction you're going to have a group of survivors, and you're going to be taking those survivors out to claim resources to basically have either the biggest city with the most town health or the most prestigious city in the wasteland, and at the end of the game whoever reaches one of those two goals first is going to be declared the winner. This is going to be done through a series of different dice rolls that are dedicated to specific characters to see if you could pass skill checks throughout your adventure. So rather than getting too deep into that here, let's go check the game out. Alright, this is basically going to be Fallen Lands set up and ready to go. Now, there's a lot of rules that it's not going to be possible for me to cover in this game, in this example, I've only got one player set out here, but there's, everybody's going to be set up on their own faction, as you see here. There's little markers around, so this faction would start here, so on and so forth. So my faction would start here on the little wolf logo, and then my little party member token would start on it. Now each player is going to get a series of characters and a bunch of spoils in order to equip their character. So as you see, if I move the camera up just a bit, those are quite a bit of the cards that everybody starts with. And then your player board is going to look a little something like this once you've set up what characters you're going to be using, what's going to be equipped to who, so on and so forth. And then you are going to be ready to play. Now it needs to be noted, each character faction is going to have starting technologies such as these, and then you're going to have any other starting stuff and special abilities here where it says faction perks. Now there's quite a number of factions, so I'm using the Enclave of Terra. You have the Regulators, the New Federalists, Sigma Corp, Sons of Neptune, Highwaymen, Swamp Runners, the Brotherhood, Syndicate, and the Coalition of the Black Angel. Each of them have their own special perks, their starting technology, their own little starting cards that they start with, stuff like that. On your turn, you're going to go through this is the first player sheet, and you're just going to follow all of this. Now I'm not going to delve too deep into how all this works, except for a little bit more into the party exploits phase, but you're going to go through the effects phase. Any lasting effects you're just going to do. You're going to do the town business phase. Everybody gets an action card. You produce all your resources. You're going to be able to sell cards to each other and back to the bank. You're going to roll on this chart here that just gives you special abilities. If you roll 4 through 7, nothing happens, but at 1, 2, or 3, you gain prestige and town health. 8, 9, and 10, you lose town health, lose stuff. Then you get your financial period. You can again buy and sell stuff. You can purchase stuff you can buy technology or upgrade technology and equip it. Purchase town defense chips. You can hire NPCs. Then it goes to the party exploits phase. Now this is where the meat of the game comes in. So what you're going to do is you're going to decide which actions you're going to take. And those actions are movement, encounter, PvP, resource, healing, and mission deeds. So the way these work, I'll touch on them fairly briefly, is movement. You're going to roll a d6, and that's how many movement points you have. But you're going to add any movement bonuses that you have on your character sheets here. So when you're doing this, you're going to look over all your character cards, and you're going to see how many of these little footprints that you see on your character card. So in this case, my Humvee gives me a 2, and I don't see anything else for anybody. So you're going to take one of your little chips and you'd put it over the 2 just to remind you, hey, I have a +2 movement. So in this case, I have 5 movement points. And you got a map key over here. Plains cost 1, so where you see it's open, those cost 1. Mountains cost 2. Cities and radiation cost 3, and so on and so forth. That's down here. So I have a 5, so I could go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I go around the city and the radiation. And now I'm on one of these resource markers. Now what those are how you increase your town worth, which you already have 1 token out on the board, so you start out with 1 town here. So you start there. When you end your turn, you have to either take a location card that you see up here, one of the ones that I showed, of your appropriate area, or perform another deed. You can't just keep moving, you're gonna have to perform something. So in this case, I could just do an encounter deed, and it's a plains, so I can just draw a plains card and resolve it. Or, in this case, I can do a resource deed. It costs 2 weeks, but I can claim this resource for the Enclave of Terra. So what would happen is you're gonna choose any one of the decks to draw from, and most of the time you're gonna wanna draw from the plains deck, because it's generally speaking the easiest of all of the decks. You're going to reveal it, and you're going to read the text that you see here, and this is just a thematic blurb, and then you're going to follow your instructions right here, these symbols from left to right. So from left to right we have 6, so you just found 6 salvage, which is effectively money in the game. You get your 6 salvage, and then where this shows a little skull and a number, that means I have to test this skull, and I have to get 5 successes. So what you're going to do, and unless the game says otherwise, you're always going to roll all of these dice. You roll the black if you have a vehicle. You're going to roll them, and then you're going to compare them to your character sheet. All right, so when we do, this is what we're looking at. So the way the skill checks work is you're wanting to roll equal to or less than the skill that you're rolling. So in this case, a skull. So when we add up Laura Windborn, she has a 4, a 3, and a 1. So that means she's got 8. I have to roll 8 or less. I got a 1, so that is a success. So for here, we have a 7, a 2, and a 1. So we have, 14, 15, 16, 17. So the way this works is, because it's over 10, you're going to take 10 away. That's just 1 instant success. And then you roll against the remainder. If you'd still say I had 27, you would take both 10s away. That's 2 successes. Now roll against the 7. Whatever's left over. So in this case, what did I say? We have a 17. So we start with 1 success, we rolled a 7, so that's 2 successes. So far I have 3 successes. We move here. The card says I needed I think it said 5 successes? Yeah. So we go here to Mei Fyung Husu. She's got, yeah, we definitely got that. We actually only get 1 success because 8 plus 4 is 12. And then take away the 10. That's 1 success, so it's 4. Now we have to roll under a 2. We didn't. It's a 7, so we just got the 4 success. And you continue to do this. Now, if I were to say, let's say, roll a 10 on her, then no matter what, she does not get any successes. Think of it like a botch or something in an RPG. So once you've done that with all your characters and the vehicle, if you have your number of successes that you need, you're going to deal with the success thing here, and it tells you, what happened, yada, yada, yada. However, if you don't, you're going to deal with the failure option, which a lot of the time those are very bad. In this instance, I did successfully do what I was going out to do, so I'm going to get any rewards that card tells me that I get, plus, because I succeeded in the check, I go ahead and claim that resource depot. I move this up by 1, which is going to help me every round, so now, in the beginning of every round, I just get plus 2 town health to my value because my city is just growing because we have more resources. Throughout the course of the game, all of your characters may die, and if that happens, you start your turn basically back at your base. If you have more characters in your town hall, like in this case, you always start with 1 here, you put them out. For anybody that you cannot fill an entire party, you have to take penalties to either town health or prestige in order to fill that out, and if that does happen, you also get some free spoils cards to help equip your team right out of the gates. So throughout the course of the game, you're going to be doing that over and over and over again until one person reaches either 80 town health, or you're going to reach 20 prestige. First one to do that is declared the winner. And in a nutshell, that's how you play Fallen Land. There's a lot more rules that I could go more in depth in, but I like to try to keep these videos short. Now, post-apocalypse is probably my second favorite theme in a board game, next to, of course, space and sci-fi. Apocalypse definitely ranks up there, number 2, maybe even number 3. So I was stoked for this. Now, I didn't back the Kickstarter for lots of different reasons, and I saw at Gen Con, didn't have time to demo it, so I was kind of stoked when Fallen Dominion said that they would let me go ahead and review the game, which I was pretty stoked about. I got it in the mail, and I've had this in the mail for like 3 months, and for a lot of reasons, some of which I'll get into in a second, it's taken me this long to get this review out. I've had this since like a couple months after Gen Con. I want to say I got it back in like early November. And so I've been trying to get this together to get people playing through with the holidays and whole nine yards. It's actually been a lot more difficult than it normally should be. Now I'm not really sure how I want to take this. Now you see here, there's so many cards. There's so much of everything. There's just tons of tokens and chips and dice and more cards. Did I mention there's cards with this game? And so I'm conflicted. I like games that just come with stuff. But the problem is, the game is boring. And what I mean by boring is there's very little player interaction unless you have two factions that are right next to each other. If you happen to be on either sides of the board, then there's not a lot going on, and for the most part, you're not really going to be interacting with each other until one player starts to win, and then it's going to be, let's beat up the leader. And that's a big problem. With that, combined with the sheer amount of downtime in this game, it is absurd. When it's not your turn, unless another player is directly attacking you, you are literally doing nothing, and you could pretty much care less what that player is doing. Now, I've played games with a lot of downtime before. Battlestar Galactica, for one, is a game that has quite a bit of downtime, but there's reasons to fill that downtime space. Again, let's go back to Battlestar Galactica. When it's not my turn, I still care what's going on because I'm paying attention to who's doing what and what cards they're getting and kind of watching their mannerisms, and I'm doing all of that. With this game, unless you're screwing with my stuff, I do not care one bit what you're doing, especially if you're on the other side of the board. If you're on the East Coast and I'm on the West Coast, I really don't care what you're doing because it's not going to affect me whatsoever. The only exception is there's cards that allow you to screw somebody over, but that's really the only reason. You've already, okay, this is what I'm going to do at the end of their turn. Hey, let me know when your turn's over, is basically what happens. So if it's not abundantly clear, I don't like this game at all. I almost hate this game. Everybody that I played this with felt exactly the same way. Not a single person that played this enjoyed it. And that's part of why I've had this game for 3 months or so, maybe even longer, and haven't been able to get a review out, because we haven't wanted to finish a game of this since I got it. And the first few times I thought maybe we were playing wrong, because this game has so many rules. It feels like the designer designed this, and you can tell there's been a lot of work and a lot of love and a lot of care put into this. But it seems like they kept adding systems and never wanted to take any out. They never wanted to simplify anything. They never wanted to streamline anything. They just wanted a convoluted, complicated mess. And it shows. Because, I mean, the player board, I'm going to try to put up some pictures here from the game we tried to play last night, actually. And just, it's so hard so cumbersome to do a simple skill check when you have somebody that's got a bunch of different cards attached to them. You roll this die and you have to, every skill check goes, you roll these and go, okay, I rolled a 4, so this is 10, so it's, you gotta do a bunch of math, and then you're like, okay, so that's 2 successes, so that's 1. Alright, so that's 1, or say, whatever, 3 successes for this 1. You have 4 more, or even 5 if you have a vehicle, more of those for this one skill check, and it's just time consuming and cumbersome and a mess. Then the footprint is insane. Never ever play this game with more than like 3 people, because it's going to take up your entire table. I don't care how big your table is. It takes up so much space just for each player's cards, because the way you have these cards going down, and you can't kind of consolidate them because there's text on the tops of the cards and the bottoms and all over the place, so that sometimes you have to keep track of, because some of these have special abilities, and it's just overall it's cumbersome, it's boring, and it's a luck fest. 90% luck. There's a lot of games that are very luck based. Kingdom Death, one of my favorite games, heavy in the luck, but it can be mitigated by strategy, good solid strategy. Plus it's a cooperative game, so that luck is basically you fighting the board. This, you're fighting each other and the luck. So you have to get these you have to get the good gear. You have to roll dice. Everything is rolling dice and hoping you get the right gear. And my biggest pet peeve with this game that made me this happened almost every game that I've ever played. Somebody has their entire team wiped out turn 1 of the game. Now, the 3 decks are supposed to go in terms of difficulty. Plains, Mountains, City, Mission is difficulty. Plains are supposed to be the easiest ones. Now, you might have to do a skill check the first turn after your first move that you need 6 successes, which is nigh impossible right out of the gates. Unless you got really lucky with your gear, you need 6 successes. And if you don't, your parties might die. Last night, the game that we played, literally all 3 of us out of the Plains deck drew cards that basically eviscerated and wiped out our party turn 1. So it basically set everybody back. So in that situation, it's not a super big deal because everybody's set back. But something like that, I feel, should have 2 things. Either A, should not happen in the easiest deck, or be at least reasonably easy to avoid. Whereas this, where it's 100% luck, you're equipping certain people with certain things. It's really the only meaningful decision you're doing in terms of the gear. And that's, I guess, mitigation, but it's not good mitigation at all. And every game that I've played, 1 or 2 people have died turn 1, wiped out, and they basically now have to start a few turns behind because they're taking these massive penalties, and there was nothing they could do about it. And it's ridiculous, and it's just over cumbersome. Now, I know I like to talk about both the good and bad in my videos, and with this game, there is some good. The narrative in the game is really well done, with a lot of grammatical errors, but the overall theme, and I don't really want to say theme, the overall narrative that the game generates is there, and it is pretty cool. Bit broken because a lot of things that stagger back and forth, they don't make a lot of sense sometimes, but overall it is a very narrative game. There's lots and lots and lots and lots of text on these cards, which can both be a detriment and some people may like, and I don't mind lots of text on cards. Eldritch Horror, the Mythos cards, have lots of text on them sometimes, but it's not that bad. Whereas this, if I'm taking my turn and I have to draw 4 of these cards during my turn because I moved 4 times, that's a lot of text, and you're not doing anything, and you're sitting there, and yeah, it's interesting seeing that old man, what's his face, shot himself because his tractor blew up. That's funny, ha ha ha. But a lot of them, it doesn't affect you. You don't care overall in your gameplay. Now, so that is there, and the overall concept is awesome. I like the concept of the way these cards work, but it's so cumbersome trying to keep track of everything. And I hate to say this, but there's almost too much going on in this game to keep track of. The game is already super complicated. The rulebook is not super bad, but it's not good at all. It reads well enough, I guess, but the layout is kind of all over the place. For the most part, like the first half summarizes certain things and then talks about them later, and it's really hard to find certain things in there, and it's just, I cannot recommend this game. The only real good thing that I can say about it is the narrative is pretty cool, and the overall idea is pretty cool. One of the players last night actually had said, this feels like the designer wanted to make this as a video game but couldn't, so he turned it into a board game instead. And that's what it feels like. It feels like this would be an awesome video game. I would probably buy this in a friggin' heartbeat. But as a board game, no, not at all. We did not enjoy this one bit. Anyways, this is turning into a rant. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time in the quarantine.